to fully grasp personal finance and know what myths are out there and replace them with the truth, you'll need a complete understanding of the history of money in America. And we can't even begin to cover that without discussing the credit industry. Think back to the last commercial you've seen for something big, like a car, a living room set, or a vacation. Did the narrator say something like, "When you can afford it, we'd love for you to buy it"? Or did his message sound more like, "Buy now, pay later, 90 days same as cash"? I think we all know it's the second phrase we hear most. Borrowing money is such a normal part of our culture. It's hard for many people to imagine living life without it, much less affording transportation, furniture, or taking a family trip without going into debt. So the question is, America, how did we get here?
Most people are impatient.
They just can't wait.
Because it's easy access, pretty much.
It's a lot easier to use a credit card and then instead of saving for a long time.
Ever wonder why most people borrow money the way they do? They use loans and credit cards without giving it much thought. Want it now but don't have all the money for it? Hey, no problem. I'll just put it on this little piece of plastic and it's mine. Buy now, pay later has become a way of life for the normal American. Right now, the average total household credit card debt is over $15,000, and the average student loan debt is about $30,000. That's a lot of money to pay back, and that doesn't even count the interest. Later in this class, you're going to learn why credit cards and car loans are such a terrible idea. But first, we need to ask a question. How did we get here? Let's take a quick look at the evolution of the credit industry in America. Before 1917, buying things on credit was extremely rare. That's because there were laws preventing lenders from charging high enough interest rates. That meant lenders couldn't make much money by offering loans to working Americans, so they didn't bother with it. Sure, there were small-time loan sharks who took advantage of broke, scared, and desperate people. But these were shady businesses, and the high interest rates they charged were totally illegal. Jump ahead to 1920. World War I had ended, and the consumer demand for big-ticket manufactured products skyrocketed. Around that time, lawmakers were trying to shut down the illegal loan sharking industry, so they relaxed the credit laws and made it profitable for respectable banks to offer loans. And what do you get when you mix consumer demand for stuff and the legalization of personal loans? Well, in the 1920s, you got the birth of the American credit industry. Then a little bit later, at the tail end of the 20s and into the 30s, the Great Depression was raging. The government relaxed lending laws even more to help banks stay profitable. Then, moving into World War II, the economy improved a lot because the war created a ton of new jobs. After the war, the soldiers came home, the economy was in a lot better shape, and the lending laws were still relaxed. That pretty much set the stage for the birth of the credit card in the 1950s. Debt was becoming easier and more socially acceptable for the consumer, and it was more profitable for the lenders. It was a perfect storm. The credit monster has grown like crazy since then. In the past 50 or 60 years, debt has gone from something people were a little ashamed of to something that's totally normal in our culture. Banks keep coming up with all new and different ways to get our money. Everything from high interest rates to a million different little fees that pick our pockets. And we as a society have become so addicted to debt that we still get excited when we're approved for a credit card. We think, hooray, I've been given the opportunity to lose all my money and spend my life in debt. I'm so lucky. The bottom line is that a lot of people you think look wealthy are completely broke. A big house, nice car, and flashy jewelry may look great on the outside, but most of the time these days, it just means that the mailbox is filled with outrageous bills and that the house is filled with unbelievable stress about how to pay for them. This is not the American dream. It's a trap. But there's a better way, a way to have everything you need, a whole lot of what you want, and a legacy you'll be proud to leave to your kids someday. That's the kind of stuff we're going to cover throughout this class.
I'm going to let you guys in on something. It's a little fact that most people don't realize as they're growing up. Some people figure it out by the time they're adults, and other people never learn. But you guys are going to get it today. Here it goes. things aren't always as they seem. By now, you know that Santa isn't real and that putting on a cape doesn't make you a superhero. But that's not what I'm talking about. I mean the car your neighbor drives, the house your friend lives in, the clothes your relative wears. You might look at them and think, wow, they're doing pretty good. I want to live like them when I grow up. But like I said, things aren't always as they seem. The average credit card debt in this country is over $7,000 a family. On top of that, people borrow money to buy cars, homes, and to finance college educations. When you see something on someone else that makes you feel that twinge of jealousy, you have to realize that they may not even own it. It's possible that what you see was paid for with debt. So why does this matter? Well, it matters because one day you'll be out there in the real world. You may want to have what your friend has or look like your friend does. You'll realize that you can't live a life of luxury on your own and that you'll need a little help. You'll be tempted to go into debt just so you can be like everyone else. That's when you gotta remember, things aren't always as they seem. Being like everyone else means being broke and in debt. You don't have to spend more money than you make just to look good in front of your friends. You can learn the basic money principles and put them into practice. Then you'll get to experience a deeper satisfaction than any of your broke friends. And it really is simple, you guys. That's because personal finance is 80% behavior. It's only 20% head knowledge. The money math is easy. It's controlling your behavior that's the real challenge. As you guys think about the normal American family, remember that normal is broke, and you don't have to be normal.
I want to tell you guys a little bit about why I'm so passionate about teaching people how to handle money. Right after I graduated from college, I went through a couple of jobs and I started buying and selling real estate. And I got rich, at least by a kid from Antioch, Tennessee standards. I ended up with a little over $4 million worth of real estate and a little over $3 million worth of debt. That means I had about $1 million net worth by the time I was 26 years old. My wife Sharon and I did all the cool rich people stuff. We took expensive vacations. We drove fancy cars. We bought a house in the same neighborhood as my mom and dad. Only took them 30 years to get there. We were really having fun. You know, you hear these people say stuff like, all those rich people are miserable. We were having a blast. But here's the dirty little secret. We were living a lie. We looked rich on the outside, but the truth is, I had built a house of cards because our entire net worth was supported by debt. I owed millions and millions of dollars on this real estate. And one day, that house of cards came crashing down. When one of the banks called one of the loans, and then they called another, and then another bank called another, and it all fell in. All of a sudden, I had to come up with cash to pay off all these lenders, but I didn't have any cash. We were sued as a result of not paying our bills. We were sued a bazillion times. We were even foreclosed on. And finally, with a brand new baby and a toddler and a marriage hanging on by a thread, we were bankrupt. Scared? Scared doesn't even begin to cover it. You know, not too long ago, I told that story on television, and one of the reporters said, so how did you bounce back? I just kind of laughed and said, dude, when you fall that far, you really don't bounce. It's more of a splat. So after losing everything and hanging on and being at the bottom, we went on a quest to find out how money really works. Not what the theory is, but how it really works. How to take control of your money. How to have confidence in handling it. I read everything I could get my hands on. You see, I already had a finance degree, but I had to learn some other things. And so I started talking to people who had won with money. Old people. Old, rich people, people with no hair and gray hair who had made money and they kept it. And that quest, well, it led me somewhere really uncomfortable. My mirror. I realized that the guy in my mirror, me, I was responsible for all the bad things that had happened to me, and I'm looking at him. He's the problem. It was my fault. It was my stupidity, my knack for borrowing money that got our family into so much trouble. But here's the catch. If I'm the one who got us there, if I'm the problem, I'm also the solution. And I realized that if I could get control of the guy in the mirror, then I could win with money. And that realization led me to discovering my life's calling, which is helping people learn how to handle money, how to make smart decisions, get out of debt, and experience genuine financial peace. And that's what I've been doing for well over 20 years. And I'm honored to have the chance to talk to millions of listeners on the radio every day. We've written several best-selling books that have sold millions of copies, and we've spoken to crowds of over 10,000 people at a time. Hey, all I do is teach common sense. But it looks like these days common sense is marketable. It's not that common anymore. And sure, I love helping families who are struggling and already in debt. And I love walking those families out of debt and showing them how they can change their lives forever. But even more than that, I love showing students like you how to avoid that mess. I don't want you to learn the dangers of debt the hard way like I did. I'd rather get you this message early, before you make a lot of the mistakes I made when I was just a little bit older than you are right now. And that's why Rachel and I are here walking you through this class. It's not because we want you to check off a credit on your high school transcript. It's because we know without a doubt this is one of the most important classes you'll ever take.
If it's an emergency.
Hopefully never.
I don't think you should use a credit card at all.
Buying like furniture, maybe a car or something.
If you don't have the money for it at that time and you really need something.
When it's like for higher priced items, I think, not just fast food restaurants like me.
Personally, in my opinion, I wouldn't use a credit card.
Despite all the problems they cause, credit cards and loans continue to exist because Americans believe they have to have debt, which in turn makes this a hugely profitable industry. Americans today charge more than $1 trillion a year on their credit cards. With interest payments skyrocketing, it's totally understandable that these companies are rolling in the big bucks. Now, there's nothing wrong with making a profit. I mean, hey, that's a good thing. But unfortunately, these companies are making their money by outsmarting people, even well-educated people. So why do we allow it? Well, we like stuff. Stuff is fun. We want stuff now, even if we don't have the money. We're told that debt is normal. Salesmen tell us it's normal. Bankers tell us it's normal. Sometimes even our adult relatives tell us it's normal. We're taught that we can buy happiness and there's no reason to wait. You almost get that feeling that you'd be happy if you buy a new pair of jeans, and even happier if you buy two. It doesn't matter if you can pay for it, just as long as you can buy it right now. At the core, this whole idea is crazy. The debt system keeps us from building wealth because we're constantly giving our money away to pay for things that we bought years ago. I want you to be aware of the financial condition in our country, and I want you to question it. We arrived at this place because generations before us accepted debt. You and I can stop the acceptance moving forward. We can choose to learn the truth and manage our money without debt.